What's very special for me is one of the people that I interviewed for that first article is Nicole Hakli. Nicole and I worked together as sommeliers at the Nomad Hotel, and she ended up marrying a Turkish man, and for her wedding wanted to have Turkish wines. But sommeliers are curious and are not ready to just take whatever the local wine is, and has since put her heart and soul in a dialogue between wines being made within Turkey, as well as bringing these vignerons who, in a very tough political situation, can't even market their wines. Hardly, without Nicole, could have tasted wines from various regions around the world because she's bringing them wine on a regular basis. And I'm so proud because Nicole is very humble, and when I interviewed her, she wouldn't take the credit that I felt like I wanted her to take, and she's still every bit as humble, but I see so much ownership in her work. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nicole Hakli. So talk into it, and then you just click this. Yeah. Oh, I can click it. You just want to tell me when to click it?
I'll say click. Okay. Hi. I'm not Turkish, but I feel so honored to be speaking on behalf of Turkish wines, and thank you for that amazing introduction. The first time that I visited Turkey was with my husband, and it was to meet his family in Antalya, which is the south and west part of Turkey. If there should be a slide, yes. And if you didn't know where Turkey is, it's right between Europe and Asia, just there. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see all of the wine regions, and this is that's where my husband's from. So when Onur would talk about Turkey, he would talk about it with so much excitement and so much enthusiasm, and how it's the best place in the world with the best beaches and the best food. And I'm like, okay, I gotta see this place. But what I found is when I met his family, and then I met the neighbors and the village, and then traveled around the country and met more Turkish people, that they all have this sentiment. The national pride is so great, and I've never seen so many people collectively so excited about Turkey. And I was like, wow, I want to be a part of that. That's fantastic. What can I do to be a part of that? And what really brings me joy is wine. So it's like, how can I be a part of kind of preserving that joy in Turkey? And there are several things that really excite me about the regions, and one of those is native varietals. I think this is why a lot of you are here today, to kind of taste those native varietals and see what Turkey is all about. And then another one of those is just the food. The cuisine is incredible, so fresh and so authentic, really nothing like it in the world. And it's so deserving of a fine wine culture. And then finally, just seeing a wine industry kind of from its birth, because it's still a pretty young wine industry, even though viticulture has existed for a long time. But fine wine industry, seeing that start and grow is amazing to be a part of, and kind of revisit and retaste every year and see how the quality has been improving year after year. I highly recommend doing that with all of the wines here, because whether you taste something that you like or you don't like, taste it again next year, because these are all emerging wine regions, and the growth is exponential. It's really exciting to be a part of. So I feel like I should give you maybe a little back history of Turkey and how they're coming along, because I feel like we see a lot of ugly stuff in the news today. So I want to tell you about all the really cool, great things about Turkey and how they're succeeding. So in 1923, Turkey became a republic. they just so happened during this time, the United States was going through prohibition for 13 years. Oh, the irony, how the tables have turned. So while we were tightening things up here in the United States, Turkey was like letting its hair down. So the president, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who was the first president of Turkey, he was kind of this legendary man because he really supported viticulture. It wasn't his main focus, but he supported it, and he started a winery outside of Ankara. He also was really about providing healthy food for his people, about women voting and driving, introducing Western language and alphabet so that people had better literacy. All of the things that you could possibly want from a president, really. And you'll see a lot of these sentiments kind of held, and more liberal ideas still held today, more on the western side of Turkey. So if you're looking at this map along the Aegean and Mediterranean, one of the producers today is from Izmir, the other one is just outside of Ankara, but much more liberal people all along the western side of Turkey. So catching up on, that's where most of the quality winemaking is happening. And like I was saying, a lot of the news that we're seeing today currently is more like kind of scary political and bureaucratic stuff. But I have to point out that even though that's like what we're seeing and hearing, and a lot of the, I would say, tension is moving more towards conservatism. You're seeing it in other countries as well. It's not just Turkey. And like, it's all over. It's in Europe. It's everywhere. And I was talking about this with actually my father-in-law a couple of years ago, and we were drinking Chateauneuf du Pape, which I brought from New York, and it's his favorite wine. And I was very concerned, and I'm like, what are you guys going to do about this coup? Like, what? I'm really worried about, these terrorist attacks and whatnot. Like, we're not going to stop visiting, but, like, are you concerned? What's happening? He's like, Nicole, he's like, this is Turkey. He's like, this... Just enjoy the wine. He's like, the young people will fight the fight. He's like, right now, the pendulum is to the right, and eventually it'll go back. He's like, this is Turkey. So we enjoyed the wine. And I feel like that's just like it's a shared feeling, not just from owner's dad, but also in any of the winemakers that I've come across in Turkey, when you ask them about the political situations, and I'll just name those right out. So one of those is really outrageously high taxation. It's very, there's a lot of taxes that are put on the producers to be able to make wine. And honestly, unless most of the quality ones are coming from second careers, either in like tech or whatnot, and then this is like their passion project. And it's good because you need money to make wine in Turkey because taxes. Yeah. And then, secondly, it is mostly a Muslim country, which a lot of you know, so there isn't a lot of wine consumed. However, Raka, which is an 80-proof spirit, is the national drink, which is consumed everywhere. Curious. I just don't, yeah, so there's lots of room, honestly, for this fine wine culture that I'm talking about that pairs with the cuisine. It's just like no one has thought about trying it yet. And like, why don't you taste this kebab with this karasakis? It's so good. They just don't know that they have really good wine, and it's happening slowly, but it's happening. And then the rarity and the scarcity of being able to get fine wine and native varietals, working with farmers closely, can be difficult to get them to be able to grow the yields that you want or tend the vines the way that you want, which I think is probably the hardest. So there's a lot of collaboration and communication that has to happen. One area in particular, Diyarbakır and Elazığ, so you see these more in central south Turkey. Diyarbakir is in green, Elazığ is just right above that. These are more kind of Kurdish neighborhoods, and they happen to have some of the kind of stars for native varietals in Turkey. Öküzgözü being one of them, which is called bullseye. And then you also have Boğazkere, which is translates to throat burner. And they're typically blended together. Vinkara, who some of you I think tasted earlier, it was a sparkling wine. They also make Boğazkere and Öküzgözü blends. So Öküzgözü, who is the winemaker for the owner of Vinkara, she has to work really hard to actually communicate with the Kurdish people in these areas so that she can get the grapes that she wants. Because like Peter was talking about the relationship between Israel and Palestine, it's a little bit like that. Yeah. So she has a long-standing relationship, and they are just working it out. And some days she goes and tries to get grapes, and they're like, not today. And she says, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. And it's a little bit of that, like, give and take. It's all communication. The sparkling that we tasted when I was positioned very carefully at the front door, the sparkling that we made is called Yaşasın, which I love, and I shared with some of you a little bit that translates to hooray, or like, yay, which is such a good name for this wine. She made it in 2013 for the first time, and this actually happened right after all of the like really heavy taxes came out and all of the regulations, and it happened to be that sparkling was taxed even more than everything else because this is a celebratory wine and we don't want people drinking it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I love her sense of humor, her sense of life, and you know, even in the face of adversity, she was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this sparkling wine and I'm gonna call it Yaşasın. It's like, it's so appropriate. It is literally the only one of its kind from Kalıcı and done in champagne method. And please taste it after we are done. Yeah, please, yeah, exactly. So I apologize if all the words are hard to say. Hopefully this helps. Yeah. So Kalıcı comes from central Anatolia, just outside of Ankara. Kalıcı means it's the city. It's like this little village. And Karasa means black. So it's black from the small castle. And when I was like talking about, I love this picture because we're talking about national pride and pride for your country. There's literally that red flag on like every single mountaintop. And like in every garden, there's a red flag cultivated in the garden. And then there's like huge statues, like that's a big statue of Ataturk because he represents like what free, liberal Turkey is. And so he's just a great reminder to everyone about how much they love their country. The second wine that I chose tonight, and I chose both of these producers because they really embody borderless wine. They want to say something bigger through their wine with the Yaşasın, with the Pişeli's, yes, thank you, with Pişeli's Karasakis. So I don't know if Sayit would want me to share this with you, but I'm going to anyway. Sayit Karagözlü makes the wine for Pişeli. He's based in the Aegean on that very liberal side in Izmir that I was talking about. And in the 90s, they found some gold deposits. So they started mining for gold in the 90s. And it was going well, and so they expanded it. And this became a huge problem for Izmir, which is the third populous city in Turkey, because it was polluting all the water. So he made this wine. It's from the native grape Karasakis with a little bit of Merlot. And on the front of the label, it says 6N with a cross. So 6 in Turkish means alta. With an N, it's altın, and that means gold. So no gold. And he's never shared. He would probably get in a little bit of trouble if the government found out that that's what that wine meant. But he's putting it out there, and he's not afraid to use wine to make a statement, not only in preserving native varietals, because he's one of those people that has championed this. He makes a Narinje as well, so there's a lot of native varietals, P.S. He's really another one of those people that's championing and I feel like succeeding as far as with the struggles of winemaking in Turkey. However, I want to say that even though that all of these struggles exist, there would really be no Turkish wine without people like Said or Ardich. If they woke up every morning and were tormented and turmoiled over the fact that the country is kind of a little bit in disarray politically, and because that they are struggling with taxation and they're struggling with communicating with people in Diyarbakir or Kurds, it's really just they wake up every day and they're it's pure passion for them and the joy of wine, the same joy that I have for wine, which I really identify and support. This is Turkey.